يا ربي ثم سلم على من هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء
ومحيا كالشمس منك مضيء أسفرت عنه ليلة غراء ليلة المولد الذي كان للدين سرور بيومه وازدهاء
صل يا ربي ثم سلم على من هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء.
The historical roots of Mawlid celebrations in Sudan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear audience. It gives me great pleasure, dear audience, welcoming you in this new and unique episode in which we delve into Sudan's rich literary and spiritual legacy. The historical journey of the Prophet Muhammad's birth in Sudan will be the main topic of our 6 encounters episodes. The first episode provides historical context for Sudan's celebration of the Prophet's birth. The second episode, we try to present Imam al-Barazanji and Imam al-Khatim books on Mawlid, while the works of Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Karim al-Samman and the noted Tijani spiritual guide Sheikh Muhammad Mukhtar al-Shingiti will be presented in the third episode. Moreover, Sharif Yusuf al-Hindi, in addition to Sheikh Mahmoud Nuruddin works on Mawlid, will be presented in the fourth episode. The fifth episode includes a sample of poetry written by Sheikh Ahmad Abu Sharia, celebrating the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. And finally, the sixth episode, we try to present the masterwork of the renowned Sudanese poet Muhammad al-Mahdi al-Majzoub, with a special reference to his masterpiece Laylat al-Mawlid. That will be the focus of episode 6. In Sudan, celebrating the birth of the chosen one, our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, is a central tradition in Sudanese life. Preparations begin well before the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal in the Hijri calendar, and the festivities often continue beyond the end of that month. However, throughout the 6 episodes devoted to the history of the Prophet's birth in Sudan, we explore how Sudanese scholars, poets, and mystics have honored the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, through powerful words, both in poetry and prose. From the soulful rhythm of Mawlid al-Barazanji to the eloquent praise found in the Sudanese Sufi texts. These written records are more than literature, they are living traditions that continue to echo the love of the Prophet across generations. To decide on a precise date to the introduction of Mawlid celebration in Sudan, the matter is so complex one. So it is a matter of historical complexity to assign a precise date to the inception of Mawlid celebrations in Sudan. Nonetheless, a thorough examination of the entry of Islam into Sudan, particularly through the channels of Sufi Turuq, reveals that the earliest waves of this spiritual tradition arrived during the 16th and the dawn of the 17th century. Foremost among the Sufi orders to take root in Sudan were the venerable Qadiriya and Shazaliya brotherhoods. whose teachings laid the spiritual foundation for generations to come. The earliest recorded spiritual allegiance, Bay'ah, in Sudanese history is attributed to the Qadiriya order when the illustrious Sheikh Tajuddin al-Buhari granted Bay'ah to a number of Sudanese adherents in the year 1566 AD. This momentous event marks not only the formal establishment of Sufi order in Sudan, but also the beginning of the transmission of devotional literature centered on the Prophet's life and virtues. Among the earliest and most widely circulated of works that celebrated the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing upon him, in Sudan is that one of Imam Barzanji. This rare text, rich in poetic narration and spiritual devotion, is widely regarded the first comprehensive account of the Prophet's birth and life to gain widespread prominence in Sudan. Its influence permitted both the land and the common folk becoming stable in religious gatherings and Mawlid celebrations. So what I would like to say here, the audience that is coming of the Qadiri as well as of the Shazili as Turuq that have played a magnificent role in the dissemination of Islam in Sudan. By the coming of these two Turuq, mainly the Qadiriya following the Bay'ah or the Sufi pledge that have been provided to some Sudanese, then the process of the Sudanese encounter with the prophetic seer has started. That is because by the coming of the Qadiriya, then shortly the Sudanese society at that time became familiar with the book of Imam al-Barzanji. So Imam al-Barzanji is the first book that disseminated the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. So this is just an attempt of tracing the historical background about the birth of the book of Mawlid in Sudan. So in the year 1766 and 1816 and 1830s, the spiritual current flowing from Hijaz and North Africa took a new turn with the arrival of the teachings of the distinguished Hijazi scholars and Sufis. And here I'm referring to the arrival of three important Sufi Turuq, that is the Samaniya in 1766, followed by the Khatmiya, that is in 1816, and finally with the Tijaniya, that is in 1830s. So by the coming of these three Turuq, which in fact represent what is known as the new Sufi movement, furthermore, the dissemination of the Prophet Seerah started to flourish, started to develop further inside the Sudanese society in that very far time. So, and here we encounter with three important books. That is the book of Sayyid Muhammad ibn Abdul Karim al-Samman, the founder of the Sammaniya, and his own Mawlid, book of Mawlid, in addition to another important book, and that is the book of Imam al-Khatim. That is Al-Asrar al-Rabbaniya. So Al-Asrar al-Rabbaniya, by the way, in addition to that of Imam al-Barzanji, dominated the Sudanese scene. And we find these two important books read throughout times in every or in much of the Sudanese Sufi centers. And then we encounter another important figure, and that is the noted spiritual guide, the Tijani, Sheikh Muhammad Mukhtar al-Shinqiti al-Tijani. So with his book, Mawlid al-Insan al-Kamil, here we come to say that four important books of Mawlid have provided the Sudanese society in that time with the fragrance and the beauty of the Prophet's Seerah. And by the way, from that time on until to the present day, these mentioned books, in addition to some others that I'm going to present later, constitute the authentic and reliable book of Seerah that have played, as I told, a very magnificent role in the dissemination of the Prophet's Seerah in Sudan. And as I told shortly, in addition to these four books of Mawlid, also we have another two important books of Mawlid that have been penned by Sudanese furthermore. And here I'm pointing out to the book of Sheikh Mahmoud Sheikh Nur al-Daim, that is Riyad al-Khayrat. It is an important book, also targeting the presentation of the Prophet's Seerah. Adding to that, another important book of Mawlid, which in fact are two, penned by Sharif Yusuf al-Hindi, and that is what is known as the Grand Mawlid, Mawlid al-Kabir, in addition to the book of Husn al-Khitam. So what I would like to say, these six books still to the present day influence Sudanese society whenever the time or the date of the time birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam come into being and come. I'm referring here to the month of Rabi'. So this is what I would like to say in this particular context about the books that Sudanese people were familiar with from that time on to the present day. However, it is thus evident that the Sudanese veneration of the Prophet Pairs is not a recent innovation, but a deeply rooted tradition spanning numerous centuries and evolving through successive political regimes or political eras. From the era of Turkish Egyptian rule in 1821 through the Mahdist state, passing through Anglo-Egyptian periods and into the post-independence era. The celebration of the Mawlid al-Nabi has continued as enduring manifestation of religious and cultural identity. So about the works that already I mentioned, I'm referring here to the books of Mawlids that circulated among the Sudanese. What I would like to say, these works is deep in love for the messenger or our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, is deep in love for the messenger of God. Our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, have served as both spiritual compasses and literary treasures, guiding Sudanese Muslims in their devotional expressions and collective memory of the Prophet's noble life. Dear audience, I would like to reminding you that I'm presenting the historical journey of the Prophet's birth in Sudan. So in this part of our episode, just I would like to introduce you, the audience, to the different ways of the celebration. I'm referring to the Prophet birth celebration in Sudan, or what is known as Mawlid al-Nabi. So what I would like to say here, is that wherever you go in any Sudanese village and city or town, you will find a public square set aside by its people for the Mawlid al-Nabi celebrations, with crowds of people coming and going. Some people celebrate the days of the Mawlid in mosques, from others in their own Sufi centers, while some of them, you find them celebrating the Prophet birth in their respective homes. What here is used, it should come to be emphasized that Sudanese, by coming near of the months of, by the end of Safar, the Hijri month, Sudanese started to prepare themselves to welcome Rabi' al-Awwal, in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam born. So the celebration begins with a great participation of Sudanese men, women and children, and a large presence of representatives of the many Sufi Shuyukh who attend in their distinctive clothes with banners and flags of different colors and religious verses. The crowd is accompanied by religious songs and mystical songs and drums and tambourines, while the Sufi groups seek the prophetic praises. Preparations start before the second half of the month of Safar, as I told, with tents being set up and made ready for the event. This is with a special reference to the festivals on celebration or the celebrations that used to be set up in cities or towns. So in cities and towns, and on the second half of the month of Safar, tents being set up and made ready for the event. And in this particular context, I would like here just to quote Sheikh Amir Abu Groon, head of the Union of Sudanese Chanters and Religious Singers, gave us a closer look at the scene when he said, the Mawlid tents are temporary, erected in the designated square for the celebration. Each Sufi order is given city knows exactly where its tent will be pitched. But it is not just about putting up tents. Inside them, there is a constant activity day and night. Sheikh Amir continues in his account to Al Jazeera Net and said, preparations include erecting tents, raising and renewing banners, and assigning different roles, from hospitality to praise poetry and chanting to guidance lessons for the disciples. Then comes the Zaffa or procession, marking the official start of the celebration. The celebrations also include educational activities where religious leaders offer lectures on the Prophet's life and his teachings. In addition, Quran recitations and other religious activities are practiced throughout the duration of the holiday. The celebrations start off with Zaffat al-Mawlid, which is a colorful and joyous parade usually performed after Asr prayers, and it indicates the beginning of the festivities. Families also prepare for the event in their homes and head out with special dishes to celebrations. As with any Eid, children dress in their finest clothes. Just I'm quoting Yusra Khalid Al-Maud in her article Al-Mawlid and the Dancing Dervishes of Sudan, published article on 500 words mag on 23 of November 2018. Since I'm presenting the historical account of the beginning of the Prophet Pers in Sudan, this event, by the way, includes different elements. And among these important feature of the Prophet's celebration in Sudan is what is known as Zaffa, or the procession. So just here in this part of our episode, we would like to have some glimpses of this important activity and event. So here we have Zaffa in Sudanese Mawlid, meaning and timing. Zaffa, or procession, marks the beginning of the Mawlid celebrations. It usually takes place at the start of Rabi' al-Awwal and again intensifies in the days approaching the 12th night of Rabi', the Prophet Muhammad's birthday. Zaffa, or procession, became a popular occasion in which various segments of urban population participated. It involves a parade that includes leaders of the various and different and diverse Sufi orders, government officials, senior police and army officers, and other dignitaries. Each Sufi order carried its own banner and chanted religious songs. The procession is the parade that went through the city main streets, with the banners of the Sufi orders held high and the drums that beating rhythmically. The procession heads to the Maulid Square, with voices alternately ringing out in remembrance of God and in recitations of praise poetry and devotional songs until it reaches its destination. The structure of the procession, we find that leaders of Sufi orders represented diverse Sufi turuq, each participate with their followers, flags and banners. For every tariqa carries its own distinct color flag with Quranic inscriptions or symbols, drums and music. Large drums, that is noba in Sudanese Arabic language, and tambourines, tar in Arabic language, are beaten rhythmically, accompanied by chanting of Madih Nabawi, praise poetry for the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. The flower procession usually starts from main square or main mosque or zawiya of a Sufi order. It moves through neighborhood streets, attracting onlookers and culminating in the Maulid Square. So what I would like to say here, Zaffa or procession is so one of the main features of celebrating the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. It started, and by the way, by the procession here, the official and the formal starting of the Maulid days in Zaffa. So Zaffa is stand at the symbol of the beginning of the celebration. In villages, by the way, as I told, also you find the Sudanese across villages and towns very happy, mainly at the end of or at the final day, that is the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal. You find them very happy, stop working, gather together, whether in the Sufi masjids, their own Sufi masjids, or their mosque. They gather with their children, with women. All of them participated and share that blessed gathering in which people enjoying the moment of reading of eating, of drinking, reading the seerah of the Prophet, listening to madih or praise or poetry in praise of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. So here what I would like to say is that what is symbolism behind Zaffa? Zaffa or procession symbolizes joy, communal unity, and spiritual devotion. It also reflects the diverse Sufi landscape of Sudan, with each order displaying its own traditions while celebrating the shared love for the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, on a deeper level. It enacts the journey toward the Prophet, a moment or a movement of hearts and bodies expressing longing and reverence. So, Zaffa is both a religious procession and a cultural festival march. Drums, banners, chants, and joyful crowds moving from zawiyas to the Maulid Square, embodying Sudanese hospitality, spirituality, and social cohesion. The square itself contains alongside the Sufi tents an official government tent, and sometimes tents for groups that have religious opinions about the manner of the celebration itself. So, the celebration culminates in a Maulid Square, as I told. And Maulid Square, by the way, is a large open air space decorated with lights and flags and covered in prayer rugs or mats. Upon arrival, the crowd hangs a flag by a very tall pole. And then you find that each tariq has its own tents in the Maulid Square, in which they are allowed to practice the celebration the way that they see suitable. You find some others very concerned with the recitation of the Holy Quran. Some other you find them very concerned of praising or praise singers. You find that the core or the dominant feature, the dominant activity inside the tent is the praising of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. While in most cases you find tents that is divided its activities into three parts. That is reading the Mawlid book, lecturing, and then praising. I'm referring here to praise singing. So Mawlid and the related practices, knowledge and skills are transferred within families and dance circles through participation in the events and through modern education and mass media. The event is an opportunity for different Sufi orders to express their solidarity. However, it is celebrated by the entire country, thus uniting people from different religions, from different tribes, from different races, and from different walks of life. The square itself serves as the meeting spot for the people to chat, celebrate, entertain, and enjoy their moments from different parts of Sudan. So to conclude this area, that is the speech on Zaffa or procession, I would like to point out to the verse in chapter As-Saffat Surah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, فَأَقْبَلُوا إِلَيْهِ يَزِفُّونَ. So Yazifun here, as you see from it, we have Az-Zaffa. And Yazifun, by the way, indicate to haste or to hurry. That is what is meant by this verb. So Sudanese used to say that the origin of the word Zafa itself has been stated in the Holy Quran in the verse فَأَقْبَلُوا إِلَيْهِ يَزِفُّونَ, from the verb yazif, that is to hurry or to haste.
هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء.
يا رسولا قد جاء بالحق هادي لسبيل الهدى وطرق الرشاد. جئت أرجوك مستجيرا أنادي الأمان إن فؤادي من ذنوب أتيتهن هواء.
صل يا ربي ثم سلم على من هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء.
This is the first episode, which in fact is the beginning of 6 coming episodes that tries to provide historical account about the journey of the Prophet Pers in Sudan, and then out of the benefits of the celebration with the Prophet Maulid in Sudan, besides the religious and spiritual advantages, here we have another element of benefit and privilege as well as an advantage, and that is economic fulfillment. So the Prophet celebration has become a source of economic fulfillment as much as it is a spiritual one. I'm referring here to our special context in Sudan. Every year during Maulid, the candy companies accompanies the celebration for each year during the Maulid. The candy accompanies the celebrations, and hundreds of vendors get ready for the season and business booms for many of these candy making vendors. So we have selling Halawat al-Mawlid, or the Mawlid candy, which stands for candy of al-Mawlid, with its diverse types such as Foliya, Simsimiya, symbolizing joy and celebration. Many stores that specialize in these sweets or candies have existed for decades. So factories and vendors in Omdurman, and what I would like to say here, one of the most wide-known celebrations square is that one in Omdurman. Which have been around for almost a century. As they continue to be in demand, these candies have become more elaborate and colorful in the recent years. Nevertheless, like many social events in Sudan, whether it be a wedding, political rally, or praying ceremony, we love a great party filled with dancing, singing, and food. So the Prophet Pers celebration in Sudan feature religious, intellectual, and commercial activities that attract and involve almost everyone, young and old, men and women who go to highly ornate public squares. The Mawlid even welcomes non-Sufis who are often present in large numbers. The richer numbers of the community donate food, and the less fortunate mingle with the rest, enjoy free meals, join and tea, and join the chants. For children, the Mawlid is a special occasion to receive gifts that include special toys and palatable sweets. Mawlid in Arabic means birthday. While each Sufi order has its own distinct style, all are to an extent similar in terms of their impeccable hospitality, generosity, and provoking a mood of spiritual joyness among the masses.
رسولا قد جاء بالحق هادي لسبيل الهدى وطرق الرشاد جئت أرجوك مستجيرا أنادي الأمان الأمان إن فؤادي من ذنوب أتيتهن هواء
صل يا ربي ثم سلم على من هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء
فسلام من الملا يتعلى وسلام من العلا يتدلى وسلام عليك منا استقلا ما أقام الصلاة من عبد الله وقامت بربها الأشياء
صل يا ربي ثم سلم على من هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء.
To continue in our introduction to the first episode, in our attempt to provide a historical account about the birth and the beginning of the Sudanese celebration with the Prophet birth, here in this particular context of our episode, I would like to provide some glimpses of the Sudanese hospitality during Mawlid. So here just we have these points. Sudanese hospitality is one of the most beautiful aspects of the Mawlid and Nabi celebrations. The Mawlid tents are not only spaces of remembrance and praise, but also centers of feeding, welcoming, and serving all visitors, rich or poor, young or old, men or women. So free food and drink in every tent, usually sponsored by a family, Sufi order, or community group, offers open food and drinks to all visitors. Men, women, and children stream into the tents, not as strangers, but as honored guests. No one asks where you come from or what you bring. The moment you step through the tent's opening, a smiling host presses a cup of steaming tea into your hand, or jumped glass of kirkadi, hibiscus juice, crimson, and refreshing. The most common offerings are tea and coffee, served continuously to guests. Traditional juices like hibiscus, kirkadi, lemon, and aradib, tamarind is very famous types of drinking that used to be offered inside the tents and even outside it. Regarding the food and the meals that is presented, we find Sudanese furthermore inside the tents provide what is known as asida, or beans, or bread, and roasted meat. And tharid is there, that is consists of bread in addition to soup, in addition to meat. And that is preferable food of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. And the spiritual meaning of feeding or serving food in the Mawlid tents is seen as an act of ibadah, worship. Hospitality becomes a way of drawing nearer to God, and furthermore expressing mahabba or love for the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, by feeding his community. Furthermore, it is a gesture of sadaqah, charity, for many poor and travelers benefit from these offerings. Sudanese prefer to say Mawlid Bayt al-Jamia. The Mawlid is the house of everyone. Capture this sense of inclusivity. So throughout this atmosphere, communal joy of food is not just about nourishment. It creates fellowship. People eat together, exchange greetings, and share blessings. Often after speeches or madih, a communal serving of meal strengthens the bond of brotherhood and sisterhood. So this is in most cases. In most cases, people, by the way, share the meal. Even they used to sit in groups, by the way. In one plate you find 7 or 8 people sharing the meal together from different parts of the country, from different parts of tribes. No race, no tribe, no color, no social status. They sit together sharing this and enjoying this moment. So in most cases, feeding the people or serving them with food, it used to be at the end or before the end of the day activities inside the tent, while drinks circulated throughout moments inside the tent. So here, tent as houses of hospitality, we find that each Sufi tariqa sets up a tent in the Mawlid square. Visitors who attend the chanting, sermons, or madhi'a will come as if they are guests in home. As if they are guests in a home. Food and drink are provided without asking names, status, or payment. It is a practice rooted in barakah, blessing, a love for the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. So inside the tents, huge pots, or what is known in Sudanese language, halla, or porridge, or stew are prepared. Tea is prepared continuously by men sitting at the side of the tent. Volunteers circulate carrying trays of cups filled with tea or karkade. It creates a festive and generous environment when visitors feel both spiritually uplifted and physically cared for. Short, Sudanese hospitality during the Mawlid is a living example of karam, generosity. The tents become not only a place of praise and remembrance, but also feeding the hungry, quenching the thirsty, and embarrassing every visitor, all as an expression of love for the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. To feed here in tents or in mosque or in Sufi center is more than charity. It is a devotion. It is devotion. Every spoonful of food, every cup of drink is offered as an act of love for the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, a way of honoring his birth by serving his people. The tents become living symbols of Sudanese generosity, where hospitality is worship and every guest is family. And so between the rhythm of Madih Nabawi echoing from nearby tents and the laughter of children clutching their sugar dolls and horses, the spirit of the Mawlid unfolds. A celebration not only of faith and memory, but of karam, generosity, the boundless generosity that defines the Sudanese heart. So throughout years, we find that the celebration and gathering the Sudanese to commemorate this annual occasion promotes social unity, tolerance, and national cohesion. In some periods, Mawlid celebrations serve as platforms for expressing anti-colonial sentiment. Finally, despite the circumstances of war, I'm referring here to the war that broke out on 15th of April 2023. Despite the outbreak of war and ongoing displacement, Sudanese people are keen on celebrating the Mawlid al-Nabi. Also, procession and perceiving this annual tradition by setting up tents and raising colorful flags in squares and areas far from the current conflict. So, despite the hard circumstances that Sudanese encounter and face now, despite all of the difficulties, still Sudanese celebrate the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, in different parts of the country. Mainly in the most stable and subtle areas, you find them never stop this ancient tradition of celebrating the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. And finally, UNESCO acknowledges celebration marking Prophet Muhammad's birth in Sudan on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. So by this I came to the end of the first episode, in which together experience part of the historical accounts on the long journey of the birth of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, birth celebration or Mawlid celebration in Sudan. Till seeing you in the second episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
يوم نالت بوضعه ابنة وهب من فخار ما لم تنله النساء، وأتت قومها بأفضل مما حملت قبل مريم العذراء.
صل يا ربي ثم سلم على من هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء.
شمتته الأملاك إذ وضعته، وشفتنا بقولها الشفاء، رافعا رأسه وفي ذلك الرافع إلى كل سؤدد إيماء.
صل يا وللخلق رحمة وشفاء.
حيث جبريل في السماوات مجد، يعلن البشرى بولادة أحمد. سمعت أمه ابشري بمحمد، وتوالت بشرى الهواتف أنقد. ولد المصطفى وحق الهناء.
صل يا ربي ثم سلم على من هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء.
يا رسولا قد جاء بالحق هادي، لسبيل الهدى وطرق الرشاد. جئت أرجوك مستجيرا أنادي، الأمان إن فؤادي من ذنوب أتيتهن هواء.
صل يا ربي ثم سلم على من هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء.
فسلام من الملا يتعلى، وسلام من العلا يتدلى. وسلام عليك منا استقلا، ما أقام الصلاة من عبد الله، وقامت بربها الأشياء.
صل يا ربي ثم سلم على من هو للخلق رحمة وشفاء.
وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.